podcast. Oh,
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Sarcasm and Liberty Weekly Update Show. My name is Erick Laprise. I am the resident anarchist around here, and I am guest hosting tonight. They gave the keys of the kingdom to the anarchists. Let the chaos begin. With that being said, Madness, how are you doing tonight?
Huh? Wake up.
What?
He's asking how you're doing, man.
Oh, I'm still living here in a shithole.
We
Trying to survive.
on cue.
You have
We
I'm
just
busy
talked
typing
about
something.
that.
one job.
We just talked about that. All right, whatever. It doesn't matter.
I was busy typing shit.
We're also we're gonna keep count. Okay, Otter, you're keeping count. All right, so we're also joined by our resident angry minarchist, Otter. Otter, how are you doing tonight?
I'm all right. A little tired after moving into my new place.
All right, that's good. And we're joined by Michael Liancello. How are you, sir?
How we doing, guys? How we doing?
Pretty good. Hey, you're on video tonight. Big
my
deal.
video debut.
All right.
Big deal.
All right, welcome to the club. And then, of course, we are joined by our favorite snow hopper, Amos.
Snow hopper. Exactly, I'm the snow hopper.
Stuck in the wilderness of Minnesota.
Yeah. About to become famous as F.
Famous.
Famous as the cookies, huh?
Exactly.
All right, well, here's the deal tonight, y'all. We're going to start with this Covington Catholic non-scandal story thing that I couldn't care less about.
There, just cut out.
He froze.
Oh no. So yeah, we'll be talking about.
I'm here.
You froze.
Oh, cool. I didn't do it on my end. It didn't freeze on my end. That's crazy.
Get some better internet.
I have, and I'm not even going to go into how good my internet is. So whatever.
I have
so we're
better
gonna talk-
internet in Minnesota.
I bet you don't.
Yeah.
So Covington Catholic, and then we're going to talk about this new abortion law in New York State, and we're going to talk about the Maduro regime apparently completely losing control in Venezuela. Finally, I don't know what took so long. And to tie into that, we're going to talk about presidential candidate for 2020, John McAfee, now in exile on the run from the IRS, and apparently steaming aboard his yacht towards Venezuela at the moment. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Gentlemen, thoughts on Covington Catholic and this Nathan Phillips character and the Black Israelites that were there and the media's reaction to all this crap and the death threats and...
Oh, that's kind of funny that some media is still trying to blame everything on the kids. They're
Well,
still trying it.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, of course they are. It's, you know...
They're still tumbling
Did
down.
you guys see the 1984 meme about it?
Yeah.
Oh, the face crime?
Face crime. So
Yeah,
I'll just
yeah,
read
yeah.
it quick. That passage was, in any case, to wear an improper expression on your face to look ridiculous when victory was announced, for example, was itself a punishable offense. There was even a word for it in Newspeak, face crime it was called. So basically, yeah, 1984 was spot on with how smirking as this guy was doing was pretty much yeah, his smirk was somehow an offense. And this Facebook group I was telling you guys about, where what are these memes are? They took we made a smirk selfie thread.
Like men smiling is illegal.
Smirking, yeah, making the expression is an offense now because the kid was smirking. But we did a whole a selfie thread of smirks and made a whole collage of smirking pictures, just as a meme.
That's funny.
I think the biggest story is like how everyone reacted to it, because you saw like a lot of like prominent people like actually call for these kids' heads and all that kind of stuff.
Even doxing and shit like that.
Libertarian Party chair Nick Sowerk took exception to it quite a bit, comparing them to the segregated diner white people that were pushing black people out of cafeterias. I'm not sure if any of you guys saw that part. Nope. All right. Anyone else want to go? That'd be good.
Are we all frozen, by the way?
I guess so.
Yeah, some did look
Not on
fuzzy.
my. No, everything's working on my end.
Otter, you're not coming through properly.
I think we might have lost Otter.
We lost him too.
He must be an animal.
All right, Amos, thoughts
On what?
on the Covington Catholic junk?
I mean, I kind of made my little spiel about the little thing about the 1984 thing. I honestly haven't followed. All I know is it's hilarious and it's surprising at the same time. Like in typical fashion, the news reported very poorly on the matter, took something completely out of context, turned around, and basically Twitter had a whole thing finding out like, oh wait, there was like a longer video of this whole thing that showed that they were actually instigating. The Native American group was instigating, but there was actually the Black Israelite group that was actually instigating to begin with. And
Okay. How's that?
yes, better. But
Okay.
basically, yeah, they went from there, and I mean, the kid wasn't really doing anything wrong, but because now he's become this meme, and his whole life is going to be basically screwed. Well, not screwed. For the next good few months.
A year from now, nobody's going to remember.
No, I know. I get what you're saying. No, I should but for the time being, like for the next couple months.
If you delete the tweet where you tweet out the link to the Hangout group.
Say that again?
You tweeted out the link to the Hangout group.
Oh, Jesus. Of course I did. Of course I did. Yeah, I did. Give me a second. Continue talk amongst yourselves. I'll fix it.
Good thing you don't have a lot of followers.
Yeah, well, I've got more than you. So
who actually saw the full video of it?
I didn't watch it, but I saw the moment like the Native American group was walking up to them, so I saw that. But in terms of the full video itself, I didn't watch that.
I probably watched the last half hour of it, which is where all the meat and potatoes were. And like you were saying, it was like the Black Israelite people who were basically yelling at the white kids, like, you know, incest and like all other kind of like school shooting stuff. And then like all of a sudden the Native Americans come like marching around and like get between the two. And they just march off, and, you know, it was basically nothing going on. So I didn't know what the hell everyone was so freaked out about after watching that.
I just like to throw out popular opinion about the whole ordeal. I don't give a crap about any of it, and anyone that tweeted about it, anyone that was involved in it, any blue check mark that tweeted about it,
they all got blocked.
And anyone that was, any blue check mark that tweeted about it, and anyone that was involved with it there physically should be, they should all be sent out onto the tops of oil tankers at sea, and given blunt force instruments and made to fight to the death to the Star Trek fight music, and then until one is alive, each ship, and then we put those winners in an arena and let it all go, and we make a big pay-per-view out of it, and
Jesus Christ, Otter.
Whoever ends up alive at the end of it, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I watched the first video. And it's like 25 seconds from one angle, and I was like, "Oh, this is horseshit." Like the second I looked at it,
again?
No. You were going on a rampage that you wanted everybody to die. So,
yeah, pretty savage.
I took one look at the first video and was like, "Oh, this is obviously crap. Like it's obviously garbage."
Yeah.
And then you get 25 seconds of one angle of nothing happening. So like, I don't care what your outrage is going to be. This is total. Like, you could have showed me a dozen angles of the same 25 seconds, and I'd have gone. Nothing happened. So I don't care at all. And so what happened was it clogged my feed up. And as it clogged my feed up, I started muting everybody. even people I like, even people I'm friends with. I mute everybody. I told everybody, if you clog my feed up with this, I'm going to mute you for a week.
mean, I didn't even tweet, and you muted me too. I'm just kidding.
Well, you'll never know.
I just want the entire outrage mob about it to be sent out to sea, and just I never want to hear from them again unless we turn it into a pay-per-view fight to the death.
I mean, we've got a bunch of friends on Twitter that went all nuts about it, especially like Red and Nala and all them. Like, they all went nuts, and it's like, what are you doing? Nothing happened. Like, if you just shut up and leave it alone, it'd go away. In fact, it's gone away. It happened yesterday, and today, like, it's already gone.
What
they
happened?
were going crazy over people going crazy about it. I mean, I want the original one.
Well, and in fairness, I know, Red likes a fight, and so she's going to pick a fight. And on top of that, like, she was pissed about all the death threats and stuff towards a bunch of, 15 to 18-year-old boys. And it's like, okay, well, it's death threats on Twitter. Like, boo-hoo.
And the doxing.
Yeah, the doxing thing. So my feelings about doxing are complicated. I mean, I kind of think it's like a legitimate form of offense in the modern age. Like, you didn't protect your identity well enough, so here you go. On the flip side of it, it can also be used as a pretty nasty weapon against people who didn't do anything to deserve it because they got a camera stuck in their face, and now people are going, like, the kids from Covington, especially the kid, the like smirking kid who Sandman or whatever his last name is like, he didn't do anything to deserve that, and all of a sudden he's getting doxxed. Like, nah, it's crappy for sure on that case. Meanwhile, I think it's something you got to just kind of expect to have happen. It's a modern, like, I don't know, privacy's dead, so learn how to deal with it. It's kind of my perspective. Anyway, if we're all done with that, I really just as soon move on because I couldn't talk about this any less and be happier. So, New York State passed the most, or I guess the least restrictive rules for abortion today on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, including, and Amos, if you want to pull up a summary, that would be helpful. But while I'm at, I can remember off the top of my head, it includes, sorry about that. Oh, good grief. Give me 2 seconds.
You want just a brief summary of what the law is?
Just there was a bullet points thing going around Twitter of like, here's the things that it allows for. And I remember it's like, basically, abortion for any reason up until the day of birth, like, period, end of discussion, no, health needs or anything. It removes the restriction of it needing to be done by a physician, which means theoretically you could have like abortion technicians instead of doctors doing the procedure.
You can basically have non-doctor abortion.
Yeah, meaning nurses.
Like, I mean, it's literally going to turn into like LASIK.
Well, it could in theory, right? Because it's super unregulated. That's
Some
kind of
woman calls up a plumber. Some woman calls up a plumber. My uterus is clogged.
Sort of like, I doubt it'll get to that place. Because New York's going to put out some sort of like abortion technician license. That's going to happen. Like, it's New York State.
But I mean, it's going to be like, you're going to have like radio things, a LASIK ad, and then the next ad is like, abortion ad.
Sure. So the third thing that was on that bill that I saw was basically it removed certain protections for failed abortions where the child comes out alive, and it removes some of the like responsibility of the abortion clinic to get that child to a hospital and blah blah. So
dumpster babies.
Well, basically, yeah.
Doesn't that violate the Hippocratic Oath, or are they gonna sidestep that?
Nobody actually, they don't take that anymore. Like, you don't take that in medical school. You don't take it for your, that doesn't.
We don't believe in hippos anymore.
No, we have
ever since they shot Harambe.
We have EMTs taking that because they're considered medical personnel.
See, there would be non-medical personnel though. I mean, they're performing a medical procedure.
Literally a plumber, then. Jesus.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
That's the idea. That's the wording of the bill.
That's how desensitized this law is and what it's bringing on.
Here's my question. And I asked this of a bunch of people who aren't anarchists as the anarchists in the group going, well, I don't think the state should regulate this in the first place. I think it's abhorrent, but I don't think it should be regulated. So which is this? Is this a win for liberty and freedom, or is this a moral outrage, or is it...
I think this is going to be one of the moral outrages needed for it to spring back, for society to spring back to
backlash
around. Yes, because this is. I mean, that's best case scenario for this. The worst case is that it continues, propagates, spreads, and becomes a cultural norm.
Yeah, and like for me, it's like I kind of agree with Eric where the law really shouldn't be involved, and I think no matter what laws are passed, there's going to be a market for it if there's a market for it. But like I'm always like personally against it, like especially like past this point. Like the only time I'm actually for it is to save the mother's life. That would also save kill the child as well.
You know how rare those cases actually are?
I know. And that's why it's like that's one exception, Yeah.
It's like basically the mid to high 90 percentile of abortions are out of convenience.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
like,
here's
I hear the rape argument a lot. It's like, okay, like...
1%?
Well, and here's the other piece of it, right?
Even
you get raped, or rape, or incest, or any of those arguments. Like, that happens... How much is Plan B? $200? Maybe?
50.
So, okay, great. So it's $50. So, hey, I reported my rape or I reported my incest, and I get a voucher for Plan B, and I get to go take that and be done with it. Like part of my
statist.
Well, I'm offering a solution to the current system, right? Where like my pinned tweet is a survey, and in that survey, where you stand on abortion is one of the questions, and my answer is it's murder after heartbeat, which means at 6 weeks. So anything you can do between insemination and theoretical conception and 6 weeks heartbeat should be. I still maybe kind of sort of have a problem, but there's wiggle room in there where it's birth control and not abortion, right? And so my perspective is if you know you're pregnant, which you should know about the time you get a heartbeat, you'll know, hey, you're pregnant. By the time you know you're pregnant, if you kill that kid, it's fair game for the father or the grandparents or whoever to kill you back. Like, welcome to an anarchist society. That's my opinion. You took another human life, right? And so it doesn't mean that your family will do that to you, or that the baby's father will do that to you, or whatever, or that the baby's father won't kill the doctor instead, because I think that's actually more accurate, or that whoever performed the abortion is probably more liable than the mother.
But it's
justified. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. Is the state has nothing to do with this, but if you, the mother, and you, the father, decide together, hey, we're gonna have an abortion, and nobody's gonna do anything about it, I think it's reprehensible. But it's not on me to do anything about that specifically, right?
Absolutely.
And so I look at this abortion law and go, I think this is not the. I don't think it's the win that all the pro-choice people think it is.
For the pro-choice, it's the win for the pro-abortion people who are not pro-choice.
I think it's but I think it's a bigger win. It's a bigger win for the state. This is the state, they're going to issue licenses, and they're going to issue licenses for the clinics, and they're going to issue licenses for all these new abortion techs in theory. And so it's a money grab. It's another revenue stream for the state. And you want to talk about like tax cattle on a happy little farm, like this is a whole other, hey, we're going to take your baby for whatever, like we're going to take the money for killing your baby straight up. Like it's that part is gross.
Because what's to stop someone from, say, like Philadelphia from going to New York and having an abortion?
Right. Or, hey, like, whatever that looks like, I'm sure there's going to be fees and stuff, but the state's going to take taxes and all that. It's New York, for crying out loud. Like, they're the highest. It's them or California or I think Connecticut and like Illinois and Vermont. Like, it's the 4 of them or 5 of them at the top, where it's like they're the most taxed state in the country.
So what you're saying is abortion is theft.
I'm saying under this new law, abortion is theft. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
That's a theft of life. You steal someone's life.
Well, it's not. But on top of that, they're adding a fee to that.
So it's a theft of money.
It's a theft of all of it. So I think from my perspective, any law is horrendous, but this law in particular is heinous beyond all belief.
Hey man,
I'd like.
Oh, go ahead, Otter.
I'd like to posit another theory on this too that sprung to mind.
Okay.
I think it makes a great argument for how the state considers its subjects, those under its control, to be its property, because only the state, in our current system, in our society, we live in a society. In our system, in our system, the only legal arbiter of life and death is the state. So the state of New York has just declared itself to have control over the wombs of all female New Yorkers, and can say that killing not just those in its criminal system or at the subject of its criminal system, which is another argument about police, but now it may police the wombs and the reproductive processes of the unborn. The reproductive processes of those, giving life to the unborn. So the New York has just declared itself to, while yes, someone may have the option of ending that life within them, it now says that because it could be argued, I think, and I'm being really inarticulate with this, but I think it could be argued this is one more step towards the state gaining more control over life and death. Because it starts with the permission, and then it could end up being like China, where yeah, exactly.
And not only that, it also makes it moral authority.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where I was going.
Because
with
that. You think about how many people will justify things as being legal up until you make the argument. Well, what the Nazis did were legal. Do you justify that?
By living in our society, we have increasingly, I won't say always, we have increasingly deferred to the law as our arbiter of morality, not to a separate moral code outside of the law.
I mean, I think there are some laws that are definitely necessary. Like in the state of Minnesota, you are not allowed to have a duck on your head while crossing into Wisconsin. That's an important law.
Yeah, so part of that also remains to be seen, right? Like, it's a brand new law.
Just completely ignored my joke.
Jesus. Actually look like? Your joke was hilarious and not really pertinent.
Germaine. You're ungermaine. Ungermaine. Anyway.
So I think, it remains to be seen kind of what the actual outcome of this law is going to be. Like, is the abortion rate in New York going to go through the roof now that it's easier? Our third trimester abortion is going to go up because they're pretty rare. Because it's
one of the best things that could happen.
Because that kid is viable. Like, if you were to go into labor at the beginning of the third trimester, like, that's a kid. Like, it's a premature
one of the best
kid,
things that could
got
come
like an 80% chance of living.
Yeah, one of the best things that could come from this is a discussion within individuals themselves, their own internal machinations, thought processes, along with discussions in between individuals about when life actually begins. The whole reason we have a debate on abortion and why why it ever went to the Supreme Court, why it ever became litigated, yada yada, is because no one has set forth. We again as a society, I don't know how else to better express that. Is we as a society have not come together with some sort of scientific basis, with some sort of philosophical basis of when life begins. No one can agree on that point, and up until we can agree on that point, and then, regardless of how you feel about the necessity of law, codify it into law as to when that is, and anything afterward becomes murder. It will not. We can't have a homogenous philosophy and precedent on abortion. If y'all follow that kind
of. Yeah, in my opinion, the whole point of when I start is, for me personally, a bit pointless. It is for me more like it's a potential life. That's why I'm against it. But...
Right, exactly.
Like I said, I've read a whole lot of timetable shit, so that I'm looking more from that point of perspective, because you completely eliminating a potential life.
Yeah.
What can inspire other things? But at the other hand, it could be a terrible piece of shit person what could be born. So yeah, it moves that as well.
There is that argument for abortion that the guys from Freakonomics made, that like the decline in the crime rate in the inner city and stuff, like there's some sort of correlation with like post Roe v. Wade, like kids that theoretically would have been born into high crime, high poverty areas that might have been more criminal, because they weren't born at all, the crime rate went down.
Statistically, it's been essentially a genocide against minorities.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean the rate of abortions among minorities versus white folks.
That was even the big reason why Planned Parenthood exists, right? It's because to control the black and the brown people a bit.
I mean, that's the foundation of Planned Parenthood. I mean, it was founded during the eugenics movement. That was the idea.
What's funny, the NRA was made to protect the people.
I got an AFK for about 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and move on, unless anybody else has something, groundbreaking to say about a bunch of white guys talking about abortions. Seems great, awesome.
Right.
Identity politics for the win.
Hey, what's up?
Bunch of white men can't talk about nothing.
No, we can't. Well, I guess you're only half white, so you get to talk about some things.
Okay.
I mean,
no, it's an order. He cannot even talk about human issues, only about animals.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about the uprising in Venezuela, and this guy Juan Guaido, the new interim president, disputed, Trump-backed, and kind of what looks like a popular uprising. Finally, I'm wondering what took so long. Thoughts, comments, questions, theories?
I mean, I've only read into this a little bit. There was some kind of incident with the police killing a bunch of people, a bunch of protesters, and I'm just glad the socialists are going down.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of socialists, and I know a lot of activists, like radical socialists, that would say it's not socialism, it's state capitalism, which fine.
Yeah.
I think I would probably go ahead and concede that point. But I'm not sure that this, apparent, National Endowment for Democracy plant who is just claiming the presidency on some sort of, referendum basis. I don't know what all that's about. I think it's probably too early to really have a whole lot of theory about it.
Well, I guess the idea was that Maduro's re-election wasn't
legitimate.
Yeah, that's the word. So he basically claimed himself as the rightful leader, and like you said, Trump backed him on that. So Trump recognized him as leader of Venezuela.
Yeah, and apparently he's the president of the National Assembly, so it's not like he's some like nobody off the street. Like he's involved in Venezuelan politics already. So, I don't know what you're going to get. Apparently, he was involved in a bunch of student protests against Chavez in the early 2000s, and became the Popular Will Party founding member, one of the founding members of the Popular Will Party in 2009, and in 2014 he was the party's national coordinator. And he has been the president of the National Assembly since the 5th of January. So this is like
pretty new.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. I would think like some of this for me is, well, you've got a disarmed populace that's starving, and they finally had enough. And if you'd had an armed populace that was starving, they'd have had enough sooner.
Yeah. And you remember, like, things were starting to go south there for a while. You remember a couple months back where it was like the drone strike that ended up messing up, and like his whole platoon just basically ran off on him, and the whole world saw that.
Yeah, whatever that was missed, right? And so there was some like, oh, is it a false flag? Oh, was it an actual attack? And I never followed up on it to figure out what the hell actually happened. But like, yeah, obviously.
The thing I focus on is how like his troops just completely scattered. They didn't like do anything to try and protect him.
Yeah, nobody's gonna die for that guy at that point. So yeah, that part I get. Go ahead, Otter.
It was some local policeman. It was some local policeman dropping grenades from a drone, I thought.
Yeah, that doesn't. In my like nut job world of, man, you can never quite tell what the deep state's actually doing unless they're taking credit for it, and even then, I don't trust them. Like,
especially don't trust them then.
Yeah. So it's
it had to be done by the government because it didn't work, right?
I don't know, like the American, the American, I don't know what to call them, not specifically the deep state, but kind of the like regime change apparatus tends to be relatively successful at getting the guy that they want out. Now, what happens afterwards is another story, but other than Assad in Syria, I can't think of a guy that they've failed to remove from power. So that part at least tends to work. The remainder of it is, or what comes after that is questionable at best. But I think they tend to be rather successful when they want somebody gone. They tend to get their way eventually.
Sometimes they're usually not very good about choosing who they put in there, though, because anyone who's a student of Vietnam history, or Vietnam War history, how many leaders did South Vietnam have? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at some point they become a puppet regime to the U.S. military, right? I mean, that's the way that works when the U.S. military machine is conducting an all. Like, I mean, you can say the same thing about the Iraqis and the Afghanis, and like anywhere the U.S. Army has taken up permanent residency. You could say that about the first like 2 or 3 governments in Japan after World War II, and you could say that about the first 2 or 3 governments in Germany after World War II, and or at least in what?
The current one.
Yeah, I mean everywhere. So
Wait, I was assured by Baghdad Bob that there were no troops. Everything was fine.
Yeah, so I know Scott Horton had somebody on his show a couple weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago, that was saying like, yeah, the National Endowment for Democracy guys are down there pushing real hard for regime change, and I guess this new guy is kind of tied up with that crowd. He went to school at George Washington University and is, affiliated somehow, or they picked him because he's a young guy too. He's 35 and he's an engineer and he's highly educated and, he's a good looking dude. So I'm assuming that's part of it. And he's an anti-socialist in, a heavily socialist country. So I kind of see why they backed him. It'll be interesting to see.
Eric, I think you're lagging.
What the hell?
Sync disruption.
Wow, really, Eric? Best internet in Texas? Is that it? You straight up froze for like a full 15 seconds.
Am I back though?
Yeah, you
And now
are.
you are.
Hey, best
Hey,
internet in Texas. Best
All right.
internet in Texas,
AFK
like best basketball
That's-
player in China.
That's funny. So, I think Chavez came to power in '95, and then national. Whoa, weird. Am I still there? Is everybody still
Yes.
here? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
That's weird. All right. So anyway, in '96, we were supposed to move to Venezuela, or like we were getting ready to. The company my dad worked for, was thinking about opening an office in Venezuela. They have an office in, I think in the Barbados, and then they've got an office in Houston, and like they do electrical supply stuff, like big industrial electrical supply to like the Caribbean and parts of South America. And then like, I don't know, it like they were making plans to open the office, and then Chavez nationalized everything, so we didn't end up going. But that was in 97. So you're talking like 22 years ago, 21 years ago and change. It's interesting that it fell apart this fast. You know, because you look at Cuba, and they've been nominally socialist since the 50s, and you know the Soviet Union lasted, you know, from 1919 basically until 91. So it's interesting that it fell apart in, you know, 20 years, and I wonder how much of that was outside influence and how much of that was, you know, the fact that, you know, the U.S. wasn't about to allow a second version of Cuba to stand forever. And I don't know, man, the whole thing's interesting, and it's still, you know, kind of all fell apart today. So it'll be interesting to see where we're at next week. I'm gonna go, ooh,
Well,
what actually happened?
I think logically speaking, it's probably easier to maintain on an island like Cuba than, you know, Venezuela, who has actual like borders with countries. I actually know someone from like one of the Facebook groups I frequent who was living in Venezuela, and she was like around among the wealthier class, and she ended up you know, having to escape because the scarcity just got way too bad. Like, you know,
Sure.
she's rich and she couldn't even like get anything with her money, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Bolivar like hasn't been worth anything internationally in a couple of years, and you know, they've really cracked down on, you know, black market importation and smuggling from their bordering countries. And I think that part of having borders is probably difficult to maintain a socialist regime necessarily.
Right.
But I actually think the bigger part of it is that Venezuela only has one big city, and the rest of it's super rural. Like Caracas is you know, and so maintaining control of a country that size that isn't hyper urbanized is actually more complicated. It's not so much the borderism. Like, you'd almost think the borders would be a benefit because some level of like official tolerance of black markets. So like just looking the other way, that like policy says, no, you can't do that, but we're going to look the other way and allow that, should theoretically allow a socialist regime to, like, or a state capitalist regime in that model, whatever you want to call it, that model of government should allow them to last longer, because you can still get stuff. Yeah, it's more expensive, but you can still, you know, you can still get things.
But also it's probably easier for people to leave.
It's a little bit easier for people to leave. Yeah, that's true. But leaving, I mean, you would think, like, why don't more people leave all sorts of different governments. And part of it is like your family's in a place. And like, I mean, I was talking to somebody on Twitter earlier today. They live in upstate New York, and it's like, it's freaking like the regulatory burden of living in New York is brutal. Like, why wouldn't you leave? It's like, well, I was born here. I grew up here. Everything I know is here. All my friends, all my family, all my favorite restaurants, all my like.
Absolutely.
So moving's hard. Like,
it is.
Especially when you're like, you're going to take maybe a suitcase's worth of stuff and you got to leave, everything and start over, and you can't sell everything because you can't let everybody know you're leaving because you're not supposed to. You're not getting a passport, and like the best case is you get a passport to go on quote vacation and then you don't come back, right? Which means you get a suitcase or two, maybe. And if you're paying somebody to smuggle you across the border, you're not paying for a suitcase. You're taking what you can fit in your clothes, and some of that's going to get stolen. And so like, yeah, it's leaving is an option, but people don't leave until it gets awful. I mean, look at like, Detroit even, where it's like you could move to Chicago, you could move to Indiana. It's an hour away, and people don't do it because it's complicated and expensive and, difficult. So I don't know that that's a viable like concern as from the regime perspective. It's like, I'm not super worried about people leaving until it gets super bad. So people leaving isn't part of why it gets super bad, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, I'm just saying in a sense of keeping it, like, the more productive your staying power goes away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And obviously the wealthier people have a easier time of leaving. So your educated, productive, kind of managerial and quasi-capitalist class, right? The things that exist, the things that fill the roles that you would find in a like capitalist society where it's like, upper to mid-level, bureaucrat types. They have an easier time of getting out, right? They know who to bribe. They have something to bribe them with. It's easier for them to go on vacation and not come back. It's easier for them to, take their families and all those things. So yeah, you do see things like, brain drains happening in those societies where it's harder and harder to manage because people are leaving. So there's some of that. And I think, if you look at like the USSR, they controlled such a huge landmass that like, it's not like in Venezuela where you can go next door to Peru or to Brazil or Argentina or Colombia or whatever, where they're all, less totalitarian, relatively speaking. Whereas if you're in, central Russia or any of the like stands or, anywhere that's not like the Ukraine or along the border with Western Europe, you're stuck. Like getting out is ridiculously hard. So you might be right about that. That like in Venezuela, the people that could leave had an easier time of leaving. That could be part of it. I mean, the other major piece of it is like the government's built on oil money, and the price of oil collapsed, and so that, like, at least in Russia, they had some other level of like industry and other natural resources, and it's not just oil. And in Venezuela, it was just oil. Like they should be the wealthiest country on the continent. Like they're swimming in oil.
Yeah.
And it's so mismanaged and so badly run that because the only state industry, like major income producer for the state was oil, the price of oil goes from $100 and some odd a barrel down to $25 a barrel, and they can't make things run anymore. They stop giving out freebies.
And so, the guys that maintain it or have refused to continue maintaining it because
you kicked them out.
They and their family. Yeah, that I'm talking about the ones that the Venezuelan citizens that were there.
Oh yeah. Why you can't feed them, so why would they keep working? Exactly. And I mean, those are the guys that left too, right? Those guys have a skill set that's marketable everywhere else in the world. Like, why would if you're that guy, if you're the guy that's maintaining the oil infrastructure in Venezuela and you're not getting paid, you're the first guy to go. Because you've got a highly marketable global skill set that says, I'm out. First chance I get. First time I'm going to a conference in the neighboring country, I'm not coming back. Somebody will give me a job, and I'll get refugee. Even if I don't get refugee status, I'll get worker status somewhere, and I'll go work oil fields somewhere else. It's a highly marketable skill the world over. So I think, all of that kind of plays into that whole thing. And then, the NED and the CIA and those guys in the State Department have gone, oh, well, we'd like to see regime change there because we've never liked the Chavez Maduro regime because we don't like that kind of statist crony capitalist system this close to our borders making us look bad. So, and they didn't want to be on the petrodollar and they didn't want to play ball with the US's petro hegemony. So, you set up a string of dominoes and all that needs is a little push. And there you have it. All right. So with the 15 minutes we've got left, let's talk about the last topic of the night. The man, the myth, the legend, John McAfee 2020. Don't vote for me. I'm in exile on my boat, apparently headed to Venezuela because I'm a fugitive from the American law. And if I'm in Venezuela, good luck coming to get me.
He's just such a character, man. I can't help but like him.
I love that dude. If there's anybody that's like, I've got, and I'm going to apologize in advance to Michael and Josh. If anybody is doing, I've got fuck you money right, it's that guy.
Absolutely.
So much for not swearing there, Eric.
I apologize in advance. I'm going to let the one out because the guy's got, I mean, he's a legitimate self-made billionaire and he's using it on hookers and cocaine and yachts and, all kinds of nonsense all over the world. And he's not paying taxes. And yes, he's going to screw whales in New Zealand, apparently, trying to do it on his own. And it doesn't count if they're beached. You got to get them in the water. So obviously that's consensual because if you're swimming with a whale, anything you get done is consensual. I mean, the guy's a madman. He's an absolute raging lunatic, and I love him.
Yeah.
It's like I used to drive a cab in a town south of here, a little town, and the bar scene's real small. And one of my regulars was like one of the 3 DUI attorneys in town. And we got to talking one night about DUI checkpoints. Because I'm driving her home, she's been at the bar, and she never drove home because, DUI attorney. So if she'd been drinking, she never drove. And we got to talk about the unconstitutionality of DUI checkpoints because in Texas, if you get stopped at a DUI checkpoint or even just pulled over for DUI, they can have an ambulance come and do a blood draw. Now you can refuse it, but they'll arrest you and then they take you to the hospital and have the blood drawn, which is the right move, by the way. If you ever get in that situation, the answer is refuse it and have them take you to the hospital because it takes at least half an hour to get there and your blood alcohol content's going to go down in between. So,
unless you have a CDL, because then you sign away.
The tolerance is 0. Yeah, of course. The absolute 0.00 or 0.01, because if you had mouthwash right that second or whatever. But the tolerance is basically 0.
Arkansas is 0.04, but yeah, I mean, you sign away your rights to refuse as a CDL holder.
And Texas, it's 0.01. You cannot drink and drive. Period. End of discussion. Have a nice day.
Wow.
And by the way, part of that waiver, I believe, is you can't refuse the blood draw for CDL. Yeah, they can't refuse it.
I think so.
Yeah, so
even in your POV,
but even in your personal vehicle, that's right. So the conversation was, obviously they're unconstitutional, right? Why hasn't it been struck down? And her opinion was, and I think this is the correct opinion, is you need somebody with the kind of money to be able to take the hit, meaning get hammered, get behind the wheel, or not even get hammered, but get buzzed enough to be above the limit. Get behind the wheel, go get pulled over, and then be willing to ride the case to the Supreme Court and fight the whole thing while not being able to drive. And have the money to pay for the lawyers and yada, yada. Look at Defense Distributed, right? And their case against the State Department. The whole company was built to fund that lawsuit. It's a multi-million-dollar a year enterprise that's the entire, output, the entire profit margin of that company is dedicated to, handling lawsuits. So you need somebody who has the kind of throwaway money to fight that fight. So I look at to bring this back to the John McAfee topic, I look at John McAfee and go, oh, he has the kind of money to run and actually stay gone, but also be public about it and go, yeah, I'm not paying your taxes. I didn't conduct business in dollars. Everything I'm doing is in crypto. You're not getting my money. Sorry for you. Have a nice day. And you're never going to win that fight unless you have somebody like John McAfee willing to fight that fight. So if for no other reason, I support that guy because he's willing to fight them. Right? He's putting his name, like, he's 73. He's a multi-billionaire. He's got nothing left to lose. Right? He's lived life to the walls. He's 73 years old.
Wow.
He's a savage 73-year-old who has lived life to, like, I mean, just to the walls.
Sorry, Mike and Josh. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I believe that's number 8 now.
See what happens when Mike's not here to keep everybody in line. So
I mean, he's a real life most interesting man.
Oh yeah. All the crazy cocktails and the guns and the
times 1,000.
It's absolute, just savage madness, and I think it's amazing. And so, if you can't stand anything else about the guy, because he's obviously a moral reprobate, I don't have a problem with that, but lots of people do. So fine. If you have all kinds of other issues with him, if for no other reason, like he's Trump but better.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well,
like Trump.
I don't like this roughly the same age.
Call him a Trump because he's more articulate. Like he, every like little live stream he does, it seems like a scene from a movie.
So I think when I say he's Trump but better, I'm saying he's a multi-billionaire who's willing to kind of buck the system, right? And obviously, Trump's that guy. But he's also playing the system for what it's worth, right? He's towing that line where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna buck the system a little bit, enough to be popular and enough to actually win. McAfee's on the outside edge of that, going, yeah, I'm just not gonna play by the rules at all. Like
McAfee is the ANCAP Trump to the power of cocaine.
But Trump is 72, so he's almost the same age.
Yeah, and those guys like don't sleep and eat junk, and apparently Trump doesn't drink, although I find that crazy. So that's
to make drinks on his Twitter.
Yeah, no, he definitely doesn't do that. McAfee, on the other hand, like, holy crap, some of the drinks he makes, I'm like, I don't know if I could choke that down, and he chugs them.
Right.
So what are y'all's thoughts on McAfee, like, running and
McAfee 2020?
So McAfee 2020, but also him, like, avoiding taxes and making it public and, like, being willing to fight the feds on this issue where it's like, yeah, you're not getting my crypto money. Like, I'm not paying taxes in crypto. It ain't happening.
I mean, the guy stands for a good, he's a good symbol for libertarians. Not electable, though.
Oh, God, no.
That's not the point.
I get that. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence nowadays with the whole, do we try to get more libertarian people into offices, or do we just keep pushing for the ANCAP or minarchists into office? It's like,
yeah, I'm pretty sure John McAfee isn't in it to really win it. I think he's just in it to make a ridiculous statement and put the Libertarian Party on the map.
He had a tweet yesterday, I think, or the day before, basically saying he's using the campaign as a platform to talk about his other stuff, which is brilliant. I mean, it's Ron Paul never stood a chance of winning. Look at the platform he created. Look at all the movement he created.
Are we going to be seeing a John McAfee in a thong at the Libertarian Convention?
How does he make it to the Libertarian Convention if he's a fugitive? Like, he's a felony level fugitive at this point. I don't see him coming back to the U.S.
He'll be coming in through live stream while wearing a thong, dancing on his boat.
Now, see, that is a possibility.
I mean, think about it. What is a more armed event than the Libertarian Party convention?
It's in Austin. It's too far inland. There's no easy escape. So I don't see him coming.
They need to hold it. They need to hold it at a coastal city so he could like dart out of there.
In, out of international waters. Helicopter in and helicopter back out quick.
While dropping dummies labeled communists.
So apparently,
helicopter.
So this is the other thing that I saw is apparently part of his tweeting over the last couple of days, right? The videos that he's been releasing is he's laid out how he's going to continue to run his campaign, and they're getting volunteer body doubles to wear masks of his face to events, to shake hands and kiss babies and give speeches in his name.
You can almost pull that off with a Guy Fawkes mask.
It's pretty close. So, age it up a little bit and add some weight from all the alcohol, and that you got there pretty close. So I love it. I think it's amazing.
I think he's a flamboyant case for how the government, if the government wants something of yours, they'll declare it to be theirs. But that flamboyance doesn't lend itself to national politics. We if you could get someone, and I'm a fan of his, so forgive me, anyone that gets offended by the comparison, but Austin Peterson is more of the Boy Scout kind of candidate you need for making the a similar argument where it will be accepted as credible, even if he's fleeing on a boat. Just same situation. Just drop Austin Peterson into, because of the lack of cocaine-fueled flamboyance.
See, I think that's the problem.
Well,
so Austin's
the
problem
messaging
is he's so square that he's boring, that nobody's paying attention to Austin. Like, yeah. I like his politics.
Now wait a minute. He's not Ben Shapiro.
No, I mean he's pretty charismatic. But know what I think? I think he's not really ready for that real presidency run. I think you need John McAfee to set up the party a little bit for Libertarian to run the next go around.
Well, I was setting aside the presidential campaign part of it. I just heard the
messaging part of it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Now he's not. I agree. He is a little squarish, but he's not like Ben Shapiro square.
No, but I think the problem with Austin is nobody would buy it coming out of him. Everybody buys it coming off of McAfee because that's the guy he's been. Right? Oh, yeah. You're a person of interest. You're a person of interest in Belize in a murder case, and you bail. What are you gonna do? Belize, come get me. Right? Like, McAfee's that guy, and Austin obviously isn't.
Yeah.
And so it's not that there's anything wrong with Austin or that he's not a nice guy or whatever. I don't know him, but
yeah,
it's that nobody would buy the I'm fleeing for tax evasion. And I'm going to tell he doesn't. I don't think he's got that in him. And so even if he tried to pull that as like a stunt or whatever, it would come off looking at like a stunt and not like, holy crap, look at this maniac. And I don't think it works unless you're the maniac. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have the intended effect. It doesn't have the intended punch the way the McAfee thing does, because with McAfee it's believable. And I don't know that anybody else could pull it off, right? Like I don't know anybody else that could actually do that.
True.
I'm sure there's some other nut job, billionaires around that could maybe pull that off, but they don't currently have that reputation. So
yeah. And John McAfee can appeal to people that aren't libertarians, like just by his character.
Oh yeah, just being wild.
I've shown people him like that aren't even political, and they're like, "That guy's fucking awesome."
Oh, there we go again.
But here's the question: Can he really be considered presidential without successfully fucking a whale?
No.
He has to go back.
Yeah, he's got to go do it. Yeah, he's got to succeed.
Go do it.
I agree completely.
John McAfee, if you're watching this,
I doubt.
You must go back and fuck that whale proper.
11.
Well, all right. With that, we've come to the end of this week's current events show. Thanks for hanging out with everybody. Thanks for coming by and listening to us talk about crazy people. So,
yeah.
And we should be back next week.
Should be.
When the adults are in charge.